At Christmas dinner, my daughter-in-law smirked at me, lifted her glass as if she were making a toast, and said loudly, "This is the failure of our family." Her parents burst out laughing. My son did not laugh. He held his gaze on her, steady and sharp, signaling he was noticing something, but hadn't yet chosen how to respond. "My name is Marielle Hart. I am 62 years old. I drove to my son's house in Portland that evening with a small, hopeful ache in my chest. Caleb kept telling me he wanted this year to be different, that he wanted me there. And I believed him. I always believed him. He has never been the problem. The problem has always been Alyssa, her habit of treating kindness like weakness and politeness as a weapon. From the moment she entered our family, she treated kindness like weakness. She used politeness as a stage prop, sweetness as a shield, and me as the easiest person to look down on. I never understood why. Some people sense who will not fight back and decide that is reason enough. Still, I went. Because Caleb asked. Because it was Christmas. Because sometimes being a mother means walking into places that do not want you just to stand beside the person who does. When I stepped through their doorway, I felt the room tighten. Alyssa's parents looked me over with the same assessing glance they had given me the first time we met. The kind that measures a person not by who they are, but by who they are next to. Alyssa drifted toward me with that bright, brittle smile. She looped her arm through Caleb's as if she were guiding him onto a stage. Then she delivered her little line, the insult she had been waiting to use, the one that made her parents throw their heads back in delighted laughter. Caleb did not laugh. His jaw flexed once. Quietly. Alyssa did not notice. She was too busy enjoying the moment she had scripted. I stood there, the words settling over me, sharp and familiar, and for the first time, I saw something steady and unreadable in my son's eyes. Something that made the room feel suddenly fragile. He was not going to let the night continue the way she expected. Alyssa's line hung in the air longer than she probably intended, like she wanted to make sure every person at that table heard it clearly. "This is the failure of our family." Her mother, Denise, let out a sharp laugh first. Her father, Martin, followed with the kind of chuckle people use when they think cruelty is clever. Alyssa looked pleased with herself, almost proud, as if humiliating me counted as some kind of performance she expected applause for. I stayed standing beside my chair, hands resting lightly on the back of it. I didn't say a word. I'd learned silence was often the only shield I had. Caleb didn't laugh. He didn't even pretend. He just stared at Alyssa, and I saw the exact moment her smile wavered. It was tiny, just a flicker, but it was the first time all evening she looked unsure of herself. Denise leaned toward me, still smiling. "Oh, come on, Marielle. You know Alyssa's just being funny. I met her eyes. She seems very entertained." Alyssa's brows jerked upward. Mom was joking. "You don't need to get dramatic." I didn't say anything dramatic. I answered. My voice was calm, too calm for her to grab onto the way she wanted. Caleb finally spoke, his tone low. "Sit down, Mom. I'll get you a plate." Alyssa stiffened. "She can serve herself." Caleb didn't look at her. I said, "I'll get it." Something shifted then, subtle, but real. Alyssa's parents glanced between their daughter and my son, trying to decide whether this was uncomfortable or just part of the entertainment. I pulled out my chair slowly. "It's fine. Caleb, I can." He shook his head. "No, I want to." Alyssa tried to laugh it off. "God, Caleb, you don't need to baby her. She's not helpless." He set the serving spoon down a little too loudly. "I didn't say she was." Denise cleared her throat. "Alyssa, darling, maybe let's just enjoy dinner." But Alyssa wasn't done. She never stopped when she thought she was winning. "You make it sound like she's some fragile saint," she muttered. Caleb turned, then really turned. fully facing her. "Don't talk about my mother like that." The table went still. Even Martin's smirk faded. Alyssa blinked at him, caught between indignation and disbelief. "I was joking." "No," Caleb said quietly. "You weren't." He handed me the plate he'd prepared, gently, as if nothing else in the room mattered. Alyssa watched him, confusion creeping over her face. This wasn't the reaction she expected. This wasn't the script she had written. And it was the first moment I realized Caleb had heard that tone before. Not tonight. Not from me, but from someone else entirely. The first years with Alyssa didn't explode the way people imagine. They didn't start with insults at a dinner table or laughter meant to cut skin. They started quietly small things, subtle enough that I kept telling myself I was imagining them. On the afternoon, Caleb brought her home for the first time. She glanced at my living room and smiled too politely. "It's cozy," she said, the pause lingering just long enough for the word to feel like a downgrade. I let it pass. Later that evening, when I offered her the last slice of pie, she shook her head and murmured, "No, thank you. I don't eat heavy desserts." The way her eyes flicked to my waist made the message clear. Still, I bit my tongue. Peace was easier than pride. The comments continued. At a family barbecue, she leaned toward one of Caleb's coworkers and said, "Oh, Marielle means well. She just worries too much." It's a generational thing. When I walked over, she switched to a bright smile so quickly it felt like stepping into a draft. I told myself she was nervous, or trying too hard, or simply didn't understand her own tone. Mothers do that. We rewrite other people's intentions until the story hurts less. Then came the exclusions. Caleb invited me to brunch one Sunday. I showed up to an empty restaurant. He called later, flustered, explaining Alyssa had rearranged the times without telling him or me. He sounded confused, but not enough to push the issue. Birthdays, work events, casual dinners. I kept finding out afterward that there had been room for everyone except me. Caleb often didn't speak up, afraid of conflict, letting Alyssa's plan quietly exclude me. Alyssa always had a reason. Traffic, last-minute reservations, a misunderstanding. And every time, I swallowed it. "Don't make a fuss," I told myself. "Let them figure it out." But the more patient I became, the bolder she grew. Insults slipped in like splinters, small enough to ignore, sharp enough to leave marks. Somewhere along the way, I stopped asking to be included at all. Caleb never told me exactly when he first realized something was wrong. He only admitted pieces of it over time. Bits that slipped out in quiet moments when Alyssa wasn't in the room long enough to interrupt. One evening, months before that Christmas, he sat across from me at a small cafe in Selwood. I remember the way he kept tapping his thumb against his coffee cup, a habit he had when he was sorting through something heavy. "Mom," he said softly, "did you get my message last week?" I blinked. "What message?" He hesitated, then pulled out his phone and showed me a screenshot. A text I'd never seen. A reply from my number that read, "I'm busy. Stop calling about everything." My chest tightened. I didn't write that. Caleb nodded once, very slowly. I figured that was the first fracture. Later, he mentioned voicemail notifications that Alyssa claimed I'd ignored. He didn't know if I'd actually received them. I called 3 times. He said, "Alyssa told me you said you needed space." I never said that. I told him. Not once. His jaw tensed. "Yeah, I know." After that, he didn't talk for a long time. He had this way of shutting down when he was processing something painful, a habit from childhood that no amount of adulthood ever erased. Then, months later, he arrived at my door unexpectedly. Alyssa wasn't with him. "Mom," he said, stepping inside, "did you tell Alyssa you didn't want to come to my promotion party?" I felt my whole body go still. "Caleb, of course I wanted to be there. She said you refused the invitation. I never received one." He let out a breath that wasn't quite anger, but it was close. A week after that, he overheard Alyssa speaking on the phone to a friend in the living room. He wasn't meant to hear it. She said she was training Caleb to stop depending on his mother. When he told me that, his voice shook with something sharp and quiet. "I don't want distance," he said. "She wants it." Those were the moments that built toward something inevitable. Small truths he gathered like pieces of a puzzle he didn't want to solve but couldn't ignore. And every one of them pushed him a little further from silence and a little closer to the truth he didn't know how to confront yet. 3 days before Christmas, I stopped by Caleb and Alyssa's house to leave a gift on their porch, a hand-stitched quilt with the pattern Caleb loved when he was little. I'd spent weeks on it. I added a small note and headed home, thinking it would be a quiet surprise. That afternoon, Caleb called. "Mom, did you drop something off?" "I did," I said. "A small holiday gift." He paused. There was nothing on the porch. I assumed Alyssa had already taken it inside. That evening, Caleb arrived at my house unexpectedly. He had a spare key I'd given him years ago for emergencies, and his face was pale with a kind of anger I'd never seen. "Mom," he said, "I found your quilt." I smiled in relief until he added, "It was in the trash." It felt like the air left the room. Why, Alyssa told her mom it looked cheap and insisted it didn't belong in the house. She didn't know I heard her. But the gift was tossed anyway, he swallowed. She didn't know I heard her. The bag wasn't even tied. Your note was torn in half. My hands tightened on the edge of the counter. "Caleb, really? It's fine." He shook his head. "It's not. I let so much slide because I didn't want fights. But this was different." He sat heavily at the table, voice low but certain. "She thinks she can treat you any way she wants, and she assumes I'll ignore it." He stood slowly, as if something inside him had finally locked into place. Alyssa believed there would never be consequences. She was wrong. Dinner should have begun the way most family meals do, passing dishes. Soft chatter, the easy clinking of cutlery, but the moment I took my seat, I felt myself being pushed to the edges of the evening. Alyssa directed the entire atmosphere like a hostess running a show. Every gesture of hers was exaggerated, every smile too bright, every comment crafted to impress her parents. "Mom, Dad, try the roast," she said, lifting the platter toward them. I spent hours perfecting it. Caleb helped a little. Caleb's eyebrows drew together. "Alyssa, I cooked the whole thing. She didn't miss a beat." "Oh, honey, don't be shy. Team effort." "Right." Martin laughed. "Our Alyssa always knows how to elevate a simple meal. I wasn't offered the dish. I reached for it myself, and Alyssa's eyes flicked toward my hand like I'd broken a rule." Denise smiled thinly. "Marielle, dear, maybe smaller portions. I know sometimes you've preferred lighter meals." Caleb's head snapped up. "Mom can decide her own portions." Denise blinked, then dabbed her napkin. "Of course, I only meant—" "You meant what you said." Caleb cut in, voice steady. Alyssa shot him a warning look, the kind she used when she thought I was ruining her evening. "Caleb, relax. Mom's just being considerate." He didn't answer. Didn't. Before anyone could force a change of subject, Alyssa leaned back in her chair, eyes locked on me. "Everyone knows Marielle likes to keep things simple," Alyssa said, voice falsely sweet. "She's never been into fine dining or extravagant tastes." Her parents chuckled. I kept still. Caleb placed his fork down slowly. "Alyssa, stop." She blinked at him. "What? I'm just talking." "You're talking about my mother," he said. "And you're doing it on purpose." Denise cleared her throat. "Alyssa didn't mean anything. You're reading too much into it." Caleb turned to her. "I'm reading exactly what's in front of me." Alyssa flushed. "I'm trying to host—" This is embarrassing. For who? Caleb asked. The table went silent. Alyssa forced a laugh that didn't land. God, Caleb! Don't start something. It's Christmas. He didn't move, didn't touch his plate, didn't look away from her. I could feel a change building, not loud, not dramatic, but dense, gathering weight with every breath. Caleb's fingers flexed once. Then he pushed his plate back an inch. That was the moment. Not the insult, not the laughter, not even the way Alyssa kept smiling like nothing was wrong. It was the way my son slowly set his fork down, as if he'd finally stopped pretending he didn't see exactly what was happening. Alyssa waited until everyone had taken a few bites before trying again. She always picked her moments carefully, just enough noise in the room to disguise the sharpness of her voice, just enough attention on her to make sure I heard every word. She lifted her wine glass. You know, my parents were saying earlier how lucky Caleb is. Not everyone can rise above where they came from. Denise laughed softly. True, some families stay stuck. Alyssa glanced at me. Some people never really grow. Martin chuckled. Well, Marielle seems fine with simple things. Caleb stopped mid-motion. Fork hovering. As the words sank in, Alyssa leaned forward. Voice light. It's not an insult. Caleb, your mom's just modest. She never aimed high, and that's totally okay. Not everyone's meant to succeed. She smiled sweetly at me. Some people stay where they belong. The laugh that followed from her parents slid across the table like a blade. And that was it. Caleb stood so abruptly his chair scraped against the floor. The entire table went silent. Alyssa blinked up at him, confused for a heartbeat, then wary. Caleb, she said. Sit down. You're making it weird. He didn't sit. You're done, Alyssa. Her smile twitched. Done with what I didn't say anything wrong. You did. He said, you've been doing it for years. Alyssa's parents exchanged a glance. Suddenly unsure, Caleb's voice dropped. Steady and cold. I heard you throw away my mother's gift. I heard what you said about it. I heard everything you said about her. He leaned forward slightly. And tonight, you humiliated her in front of your parents. You think I don't see it? You think I don't hear what you say when you think I'm not listening? Alyssa's face went pale, then flushed hard. Caleb, stop. You're misunderstanding, no, he said. I'm finally understanding perfectly. She reached for his arm. He stepped back. You're believing your mother over me. Denise's hand flew to her chest. Martin sputtered. Now hold on. Caleb didn't look away. You painted my mother in a way that made you feel superior, isolating us both. But I'm not blind anymore. For the first time since she entered our lives, her voice failed her. The room she once controlled no longer belonged to her, and every bit of power she had crafted around herself cracked in the silence that followed. Alyssa jumped to her feet as if she could outrun what Caleb had said. This is ridiculous, she snapped. You're twisting things. Your mother has always tried to turn you against me. Caleb didn't flinch. I'm repeating exactly what I heard. You lied about her. You intercepted her calls. You told people she didn't want to be included. You threw away her gift and laughed about it. Alyssa's face tightened. You're believing her over your own wife. I'm believing what I saw, he said. What I heard. What you said when you thought I wasn't there. Denise shifted uncomfortably. Alyssa. Is that true? Alyssa rounded on her. Of course not. You know how dramatic he gets. But her voice broke on the last word. Caleb continued. Calm, but resolute. You told your friend you were training me to stop depending on my mother. You made her feel unwanted at every event. You manipulated every message. He stepped closer. That wasn't a mistake. It was intentional. Martin's expression changed, pride faltering into something wary. Alyssa, why would you do that? She opened her mouth, but nothing coherent came out. Panic flickered behind her eyes, the mask slipping for the first time. Caleb didn't look away. You built this version of my mother so you could feel superior. You tried to isolate me, but I'm not blind anymore. Alyssa's breath trembled. Caleb, please. But the truth she had worked so hard to bury was finally standing in front of her, undeniable, exposed, and hers alone to answer for. Chapter 9, The Son Who Finally Chose Me. The house was quiet after Alyssa's parents left with her. The kind of quiet that settles after a storm. Heavy, but honest. Caleb closed the front door and leaned against it for a moment, breathing out like he'd been holding something in for years. Mom, he said softly. I'm sorry. I should have stopped all this sooner. I sat down on the edge of the couch. You tried to keep peace in your own home. I never blamed you for that. He moved closer, sitting beside me. I kept believing she'd change. I kept telling myself you two just didn't understand each other. But today, I heard myself defending her again, and I felt sick. My hands trembled. I placed them in my lap. Caleb, I thought I was losing you, bit by bit. Every time she pushed me out, I told myself, maybe you really didn't need me anymore. His voice cracked. I always needed you. I just didn't know how to protect both of you at once. I looked at him, then truly looked, and saw the boy who used to cling to my hand, the man struggling to reconcile love with truth, and the son who finally made a choice. He reached over, covering my hand with his. I'm here now. And I'm not letting anyone push you out of my life again. For the first time in a long time, I believed him. 1 year later, the house felt different the moment Caleb opened the door for me. No tension, no strained smiles, no footsteps waiting to correct mine. Alyssa was long gone. The divorce finalized months earlier. Her absence didn't leave a hole, it left space. Caleb handed me a warm cup of cider. Mom, I booked us a table in the Pearl District. Just you and me. I smiled. That sounds perfect. Dinner was simple. A small place tucked between galleries. Soft music in the background. Nothing extravagant. But Caleb kept looking at me the way he used to when he was young, like being together mattered more than anything. He set down his fork. I'm sorry it took me so long to see everything. You see me now. I said, that's enough. After we ate, we walked along the street, lights hanging over us like quiet promises. For the first time in years, Christmas didn't feel like something I had to survive. It felt like something I could choose. Caleb slipped his arm around my shoulders. This is our tradition now. Just us. No performances. No pretending. I leaned into him. I like that. If you're listening and you've ever been treated like you don't matter, like comment or subscribe, once a woman learns she deserves respect, what holiday or life can ever feel small again?